What do you want to talk about?
So let's start with eyes and ears, shall we? Because it sounds as if we've got a bit of things to talk about, and we do want to save ourselves at least 10 minutes at the end to talk about the council.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I've got a good eyes and ears this week.
Have you? Well, let's start. Let's start with Justine because she's most likely to drop out.
Okay. I have a great eyes and ears this week. I've watched only this evening because it was only released today. It's an Australian short series called Mint Condition. And it was on a platform. I came across it on Facebook because one of my favourite musicians, Mick Thomas, who was the former lead singer of Weddings, Parties, Anything, was promoting it because it has a lot of Australian music in it. But I think there's 5 episodes, but the episodes only go for about 10 or 11 minutes each. So the whole thing takes about an hour, so you can watch it very easily in one sitting. But it's about a single mum who has moved to Melbourne, I think after a relationship breakup that seems to be suggesting with her 14-year-old daughter. And I find it's just really funny that the mother's opened this second-hand record store selling local Australian music. And in the first episode, the daughter goes missing. And this mother is desperately trying to find her 14-year-old daughter. And she says to her friend, I can't find her. I can't use the tracking app. And the friend turns to her and says, what, you track her like a parcel? Is that legal? And I thought I could so relate to that because I actually track all of my kids. And
You do.
So do I. I do too.
With their consent, I must say, with their consent, they like it because I don't hassle them about where they are. But it's just this great, the series just highlights this wonderful relationship between the mother and her 14-year-old daughter. And I feel it's just so accurate because having, young adults and teenagers in the house, I feel like I'm very much part of that scene at the moment. And great Australian acting, great Australian music. I definitely would recommend that anyone who's got only an hour to spare can sit down and watch all the episodes. I'm only halfway through, so I'm going to finish it off a bit later tonight.
Okay, well, that sounds good. The only thing I find, slightly unbelievable about that description is that there is a second-hand record shop. still a viable business in Australia, I think not. No, I think that business has come and gone, hasn't it?
And what I liked about that, Justine, was I'm with you. About 10 years ago, about 7 years ago, Nick wanted to drive down to Bells Beach. And I said, yep, you can take the car, you can go to Bells Beach and have your surfing holiday, but you've got to find a friend. So I was able to find out that, he arrived in Albury on time and then he arrived in Geelong and the rest of it. And because of that mutual trust, we've had it going for like the last 10 years for both my kids. And it works really well. It gives you peace of mind. They're on their way home at 1:30 in the morning on an Uber somewhere on a Saturday night and you can go to sleep.
Exactly. And you don't ring them. I'm not ringing them then to say, where are you? Are you on your way home from work? I just look and can see, yep, that's where they are. They're at a friend's house. If they forget to text me that they're not coming home. Mind you, as I was saying to Neil a short time ago, I love this lockdown because I know exactly where they are all the time because they're usually right here.
Well,
they're not liking it so much.
I found it very useful at Christmas time when I'm either up at Erin Affair or in Westfield. You can actually turn it on and find them in the shops. So you actually, you can't see the shops, but you actually start looking at it and you wiggle your way around and you start walking into the picture that you've got. And all of a sudden you're standing there in front of them and they freak out.
Yeah, no, it is great. It's good technology, good use of technology.
That's what Mariko can do it a bit later when her children get a bit older. So that's good.
I mean, the only use I've found for it is when my wife used to go out on Wednesdays and I could check when she was on her way back home and rush around and do all the housework, in the 20 minutes I had before she arrived home.
That's right. Look like you've been busy all day.
Yeah. Have you finished, Justine?
I have, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Could I go next? Okay. I've been watching, or actually I watched in one big binge, Ricky Gervais' Afterlife 2. Now I thought Afterlife was probably the best series I've ever seen in my life. Afterlife 2, I think, is also the best I've ever seen. I just think the man's a genius. It's, you know, emotionally deep. The characters are really well drawn. The language is awful. Okay, I think he tidy up the language a little bit. It's a bit rough, but his examination of grief, I think, is. I mean, we've all been there. Is really, really well done, and all the characters are nuanced. They're not, you know, good or bad. They've got, you know, flaws. They've got strengths. They do things, you know, strangely. So yeah, I really recommend. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, if you don't like Afterlife, we can't be friends.
I started to watch.
That's a big pull.
I've heard it's very good, and I started it, but I think, like you said, you've got to really pay attention, and I'm not very good at paying attention. I'm watching programs while I'm on the computer, so I need to set aside some time for it.
Yeah, you do have to watch it. You have to go in for it. I thought I saw an interview with him afterwards where, I mean, if you're familiar with the series, he's got a dog in it. And he said he didn't think he would be that affected when the series came to an end and the dog had to go back to its handler because, you know, dogs are actors too. He said he realised, you know, the dog probably didn't understand why this, you know, they'd been spending so much time together during the shoot, all day, every day for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then all of a sudden he disappears out of its life, you know. I think there's, you know, Mr. Paul Davis, the animal liberation guy, would probably have something to say about that, about the way we treat animals, I think. But there we go. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
I went away from books this week, and I decided to have a bit of a sort of a smorgasbord of different watching Netflix programs. And the one that a lot of people have watched, but I had a closer look at, is Last Dance, the story about the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan and all those. And I particularly liked it, without going into too much detail. So it drops 2 episodes every Monday at the moment. And Michael Jordan's in his early 50s. I'm in my late 50s, very late 50s. And you sort of realise that these people in their 20s really made a lot of their life. And in my 20s, I was doing things not what they were doing. And it was a really, really interesting program to watch, the whole relationship between winning all the NBA titles and all the big names like Kobe Johnson coming through, Magic Johnson come there at the same time, Kobe Bryant coming through, and all those people who are named. So Last Dance is really worthwhile watching. Next week, I'm looking forward to watching The Week with Warnie on Foxtel. They've got a program there about Shane Warne there, and I'm not a cricket fan, but I will say my brother-in-law is Phil Emery, a New South Wales wicketkeeper, and during that era, he's the Sheffield Shield captain. And Phil, though he's not going to be on the program, he's taken 1 catch in a test behind Shane Warne. So one of the 700 plus wickets that he got, my brother-in-law caught behind him when he played a test match in 2004, I think it was. He played 1 test match. So I'm going to watch that with interest, because I met quite a few of those players over the years through the 90s and early 2000s. So it'd be interesting to see what the story is about Warnie in that period. And the final thing I'm watching at the moment is a really good program called The Trial on Netflix, and I think you'll enjoy that. It starts with a really, really sort of interesting piece that sort of grabbed you in. There's a young female prosecutor in a school, primary school kids, and she's talking to a group of kids about a pencil that had been stolen from a girl during a lesson. And she starts to talk to them about how she works out how people do the wrong thing. So it's a really gripping little scene to start the whole show off, about basically finding out which little boy stole this pencil of this little girl. Then it goes, that's got nothing to do with the rest of the story. Then the story goes into, while she's on a jog, she gets a call about a 17-year-old girl who's been found in a canal. It's a European story. I'm not quite sure which country in Europe it's in, but it is in English. And then at that time in her life, she was going to sort of have a 12-month leave as a criminal prosecutor and to go with her partner who got a job as an artist somewhere else. But there's a little twist in the first episode where she decides not to go and to investigate the cause of this young girl's death. And I'm up to about the 3rd episode now, and the reason why she stays is quite fascinating. So it's called The Trial. It's on Netflix, and it seems to be quite a good program. I'm really quite enjoying it at the moment. So if you've got a bit of time, you can go back and have a look at Last Dance. Next week with Warnie should be interesting every day for those who are interested in cricket and sport. And then the one I've just found just recently is called The Trial on Netflix. That's all for me. All about eyes this week for me.
And Mariko?
Well, for me, I think a big viewing night is Sunday night. So we got our usual historians at the movies segment.
Yeah.
So we've been looking at SBS On Demand movies, and it's got a really great range. So yeah, I don't know if a lot of you look at SBS On Demand, like it's all free to air. It's a really great range of movies. Yeah, and so
I think, and what I find interesting too is, you know, their whole film festival selection as well. That's very, very good.
no,
So
what we, yeah.
I was going to say, Mariko, I saw on Twitter you were having trouble logging on. Does everyone log on at the same time? How does it work when you sort of all start discussing things on Twitter on the night?
No, yeah, so what we do is we press play at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We've got people who join us from across Australia, and even some people from overseas too. What I've had issues is with when we do Netflix or Stan movies, I seem to be able to find those movies pretty easily, but for some reason, SBS On Demand, I don't have a search function on it. Like I can't search easily, so I'm like scrolling through all these different, like I'm trying to guess what category the movie is in, and I keep on searching for it. So it happened twice now. So we've looked at Orlando, and just last Sunday we looked at The Lives of Others. So that was a German movie. If you've seen that one about East Germany in the 80s and the Stasi, which was really good. I've always wanted to see that, and I only got to see it last week. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to with SBS On Demand allow enough time because one time I started 20 minutes behind everyone else, which is a bit, you want to be doing it at the same time, and then everyone's like reacting to the same thing you are. So that was really good. We're going to be doing something completely different this Sunday, which is Clueless, and I'm going to excel at that because I had to study Clueless and Emma for my HSC nearly 20 years ago, but like I can still remember all the lines I had to memorize for my exam. So yeah, that's going to be really good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're done, and we've done it on time. Well done, folks.